Chapter 886, Preparations Before Leaving. After some consideration, Klein, who already had such a plan, smoothly cleared up his thoughts and decided on his plan of action. Pa! He flicked the piece of paper in his right hand, looking up from the soaring scarlet flames at Renette Tinnecker. He planned on taking out a low and gold coin to provide payment. However, Miss Messenger had already left. There was no one in front of him. Not collecting payment? Klein was first taken aback before he made the connection. He suspected that Renette Tinnecker had proactively asked for payment after being used to collecting gold coins from non-contractees. Perhaps Miss Messenger didn't say anything, she just stared at Leonard with those 8 eyes on the 4 heads of hers while waiting for him to pay the gold coin. Yet this fellow didn't realize it at all, trying to forcefully end the summon, only to have his neck snapped. Klein hissed in alarm as he used the gold coin he had just taken out to do the divination. He received the result that Leonard Miss Messenger was still alive and doing fine. He breathed a sigh of relief, put away the gold coin, and called out,
"Richardson."
The half-open room's door opened without a sound as Richardson walked in and politely asked,
"Sir, how may I be of service?"
"Please bring the butler here." As Klein instructed, he sighed inwardly. He had really been spoiled by the luxurious life. Even when getting someone at home, he wouldn't take even half a step. He had to do it through his valet. He said silently to himself,
"Well, this is an acting requirement."
Minutes later, the white-gloved Walter came to the 3rd floor and let his arms hang to his side. He stood in a standard posture to the side of Dwayne Dantes, awaiting his employer's instructions. Klein had already considered his words, so he unhurriedly said,
"Go to Member of Parliament Macht's place to inform him that I've prepared the first installment. Also, prepare a carriage. I will be heading to the Bursary Foundation in the morning and will return in the afternoon. If Member of Parliament Macht doesn't have time for me in the afternoon, head over to Dr. Aaron's place, saying that I'll pay a visit in the afternoon."
Klein had already taken out £10,000 from above the gray fog and had stored it in a tiny leather briefcase. He was waiting for the opportune time to complete the preparation work of the arms deal transaction. And to air the cache of the gray fog smell, he had deliberately teleported to the sea, feeding creeping hunger in passing. He was afraid that Amen, who also knew of the gray fog's existence, would detect the special smell while being in the same city, thus seeking out the location of the treasure he was yearning for. "All right, sir." Walter didn't ask his employer how he had gathered the first installment. If memory served him right, Dwayne Dantes hadn't been to the bank recently. Of course, this wasn't something to be bothered with. Often, foreigners, especially tycoons from Desi or Mid-Seashire, would prepare briefcases filled with large sums of money ahead of time. 22 Phelps Street, Loan Charity Bursary Foundation Headquarters. Klein walked through the main door and went straight to the 2nd floor, where he found the reception room for directors. As an honorary director who occasionally participated in certain work, he didn't have an office here, but he could use the reception room. He clenched his right hand into a fist and held it to his mouth, deliberately coughing before stepping into the reception room. In there, he sat on the sofa. After a short wait, he stood up again and said to Richardson, who was waiting beside him,
"I'll first head to the washroom."
After buttoning his coat, Klein stepped out of the room and happened to meet Justice Audrey walking out of her own office. This noble lady was wearing a rather simple dress today. It was white adorned with dark green, her sleeves and collars had frills, and at her chest were layers of intercrossed lace that formed a bow tie-like flower. She didn't even wear any jewelry. She had a girdle which he couldn't tell, but near her left arm, her clothes clung to her skin when the wind blew, allowing a slight protrusion to appear.
"Good morning, Miss Audrey."
Klein wore a look of pleasant surprise, as though it was a chance encounter. Audrey glanced at the good-looking Dwayne Dantes with gray sideburns and replied with a smile.
"Good morning, Mr. Dantes."
She had wanted to cheerfully say long time no see to snide at him for not being to the Bursary Foundation ever since the opening ceremony. But considering how their relationship was that of acquaintances, she held back from saying such words. Klein rubbed his temples and shook his head with a wry smile.
I'm very sorry that I'm only coming today. I've been very busy recently. I can foresee myself being even busier in time to come. I might make a trip to the southern continent to handle certain matters.
The reason why he specially came was that he wanted to inform Miss Justice that he was leaving Backland for some time. It was to express his sincerity, hoping that this noble lady could help him watch the Bursary Foundation and allow it to be operated smoothly. To Klein, he wished from the bottom of his heart that the Bursary Foundation could help more of the poor that required assistance. Southern Continent? Audrey interpreted the sincerity in Duane Dantes's words as she asked in surprise.
Southern Continent?
Klein laughed and replied.
For business.
At that instant, the first thought that came to Audrey's mind was,
Which Sequence 5 is about to lose his life?
Upon sensing Miss Justice making some unpleasant assumptions, Klein added,
It's a partnership with the military for the sale of some necessities.
What's the meaning behind this? Duane Dantes's identity is used to probe intel from the military? Audrey was somewhat enlightened as she raised her right hand and gestured 4 times in a clockwise fashion. She said with a bright smile,
May the goddess bless you so that everything goes smoothly.
After habitually saying that, she sensed that there was something discordant about that. She had wished that the goddess would bless a blessed of Mr. Fool.
This is probably closer to a curse, right? Will Mr. Gehrman Sparrow be angry? No, he's actually a kind-hearted person deep down. And I did it without any malicious intent. The one who returns from the southern continent is probably another blessed who's playing Duane Dantes, right? Will it be a demigod?
Audrey didn't notice it as her thoughts wandered. Klein gave an exasperated smile as he equally drew the crimson moon on his chest in a familiar manner.
May the goddess bless us all.
He added silently,
And that she doesn't smite us with divine punishment.
Following that, he spoke as though it was a casual chat.
Have you been going to the schools to do some promotions lately?
Yes.
When this was mentioned, Audrey's expression seemed to radiate. She was proud and happy that she had finally done something substantial. Just as she nodded with some strength, her green eyes revealed a look of sadness.
After visiting a few public primary schools, I found many of the children there very pitiful. To save money, they bring their own rye bread for lunch, matching it with a cup of water.
Upon saying that, she looked at Duane Dantes and said, somewhat embarrassed,
I know that they're temporarily not bringing me along to the night schools and Sunday schools to prevent me from seeing something worse. But I can imagine things just like those workers, who can only live for a few years once they start working at the factories.
This was something that the world Gehrman Sparrow had once told her. It was the first time she knew of the real situation of the lower class of Backland, but having not seen them with her own eyes, all she could do was rely on her imagination. Klein sighed and said,
Perhaps it's worse than you can imagine. There's no need to worry. Once you showcase your ability and win their trust, you will become one of them.
Okay.
Audrey nodded, as though in thought about how she could showcase herself better. Klein didn't continue on the conversation. After all, this was only their 3rd meeting. They had only exchanged a few words previously, so having too long a conversation easily garnered suspicion. He pointed at the washroom and apologized before opening up his gate to walk over. Audrey looked at Duane Dantes's back and fell silent as she muttered,
What will it be like if it's worse?
After receiving a reply from Macht, inviting him to the East Balaam Military Veterans Mess in the evening, Klein followed his plan. Hence, he visited Dr. Aaron at 4 in the afternoon.
Mr. Dantes, your butler didn't inform me of the reason for your visit.
As his wife was about a month from being due, Dr. Aaron had declined most of his work, and most of the time he had stayed at home. Towards the sudden visit of Duane Dantes, who he wasn't too familiar with, he was rather perplexed. Furthermore, with him not being good at interpersonal relationships, he posed the question after exchanging some pleasantries. Klein smiled.
This is the thing. I might be heading into the southern continent soon. As you know, the weather there is humid and hot. There are all kinds of insects and diseases there. I wish to prepare some medicine ahead of time to prevent any accidents from happening. I wonder if you have any suggestions. I'm really sorry, but you are the only excellent doctor I know of.
Dr. Aaron accepted his explanation and began seriously thinking before giving him the names of some medicine. Towards the end, Klein, who had written a note filled with words, used the excuse of a stomachache to use the washroom on the first floor. The washroom's mirror suddenly darkened as though it was covered by a thick shadow, and in the middle of the shadow a black pram slowly steered near. In it was a blurry child wrapped in silver silk. Will Ossepton questioned, using his bright voice.
"What is it this time?"
Klein coughed dryly and forced a smile.
You should have heard that I'll be heading to the southern continent. I don't wish to miss your birth, so I would like to know when you plan to have your birthday.
Will Ossepton sucked at his thumb and said,
"I don't know."
"Even an angel can't control when he will be born?" Klein asked in surprise.
Even an angel can't control when he will be born?
Will Ossepton replied hesitantly.
You don't understand. I've already identified 3 dates. They have unique meaning when it comes to fate, but I haven't decided. I still find it blurry. Perhaps only when the time comes will I suddenly understand what I should do.
Is this decidophobia? It also gives the strong vibes of a charlatan.
Klein crossed his hands and indiscernibly rubbed them.
Then how would I be able to receive notice in time so that I can return in time to complete the transaction with you? Oh, that paper crane can no longer be used.
Chapter 887, Familiar Figure. Upon hearing Klein's question, the infant wrapped in silver silk raised his fleshy arms and threw them up.
I can't do anything about it either. I'm still in my mother's womb. Although you can no longer write on that paper crane, it can still help me locate you. If there's anything, I will inform you.
Klein had already expected such an answer from Will Ossepton. He maintained his smile and explained,
That paper crane is already damaged. I think it will have problems locating my position.
Following that, he gave his suggestion.
Perhaps we can do this. You can summon my messenger when you're born to write to me.
He wasn't too worried that Will Ossepton's birth would result in anything abnormal, causing the snake of fate to have to change locations while in a baby's body. That would prevent him from contacting him again. Inside the black pram, Will Ossepton gaped his mouth before closing it again, momentarily not giving an answer. After a few seconds, the infant's mouth curled and said,
Do you think that's realistic? Not only are you getting a newborn to write a letter to you, he still needs to hold a ritual and summon a messenger?
Klein chuckled and said,
But you're a snake of fate.
The laws of nature still need to be respected.
Will Ossepton threw down his arms and smacked the cushion beside him. This infant thought for a moment and said,
Let's do this. Get someone to watch this area. Once they realize an infant is born, they can immediately inform you.
Klein's eyes darted about for a while before saying,
That works.
On this matter, he had many people he could get help from. He could hire a gangster through Sharon and inform him via his messenger, or he could get the usually free Emlyn White to do it. He could also hire bounty hunter, Ms. Gio, letting Miss Magician be responsible for informing the world Gearman Sparrow of the developments. He could also get a Rhodes to take note of the surroundings and report to him through a one-way communication method.
However, that fellow, Emlyn's nose, is very sharp. I wonder if he will smell the placenta blood and be able to identify what it truly is. If that's the case, it might result in him suffering the impact of seeing a mythical creature. His intelligence will drop, and he will turn mentally unsound to the point of his body mutating.
Klein hurriedly asked, before Will Ossepton's pram retreated into the shadows.
I have a, teacher who I haven't been in contact for a while. Can you help me read his current fate? His name is Isaac Eggers.
As Mr. Isaac hadn't replied yet, Klein couldn't help but feel worried. Back when he used the copper whistle to do a divination above the gray fog, all he saw was a silent and deep darkness. He heard a dragged-out and distant breathing, making it impossible for him to interpret what the dream meant. Will Ossepton sucked at his thumb and said,
He's in a state of metamorphosis. It might be good, but it might also be bad. That's all that can be seen, because that teacher of yours has something special on him.
Something special? Something directly derived from death's godhood? Metamorphosis? This is referring to Mr. Isaac's recovery of more memories, so he's in a slumber to recover his corresponding strength?
Klein thought as he bowed.
Thank you for your answer.
Will Septon turned his head and looked to the side. Klein thought and gave a warning.
Based on what I know, Blasphemer Aemon is here in Backland. Of course, it's most likely an avatar.
Will Septon was taken aback for a moment before chuckling.
It's a bane for you, but a boon for me. Aemon and Ouroboros are absolute enemies. No, a more accurate description is that he hates the true creator. Aemon is often thinking of means to pull him down from his throne as a god, while Ouroboros is loyal to that evil god.
After saying that, the black pram retreated into the shadows as everything was restored to normal.
Aemon hates the true creator? I'm increasingly convinced that the true creator was one of the participants in the sharing of the ancient sun god. He is the black infant in the middle of the storm angel, white angel, and wisdom angel.
Klein breathed a sigh of relief. He took 2 steps forward, turned on the tap, and washed his hands. In the evening, at the East Balaam Military Veterans Mess, Klein didn't immediately meet the long-faced Colonel Calvin. After he placed the briefcase with 10,000 pounds into a heavy safe deposit box, he followed Mock to have a buffet meal at this high-end club. The dishes here mainly served Southern Continent cuisine. There was cream bread made from tapioca flour, ice cream dripped in the berry juice of a lilac tree, assorted seafood broth with coconut milk and palm butter, cow innards that was cooked with pepper, tomatoes, and onions, Hagenti seared roasted meat, broth made from Paz Valley's delights, as well as steak and roasted squid. Compared to other places, the ingredients used here were rather high-end. The flavors also in authentic Southern Continent styles, leaving Klein rather satisfied. If not for his need to maintain his image, he felt that eating a mouthful of seared roasted meat and having a mouthful of ice cream would be an excellent feeling.
Indeed, I prefer food that has stronger flavors. The thing that satisfied me the most today was that aperitif. If Member of Parliament Mocked hadn't mentioned it in passing, I would have thought that it was a lightly flavored fruit juice. The pale gold liquid with 2 lemons soaked in it and a few pieces of ice makes it sweet but a little sour. There's no alcoholic taste to it, and it's refreshing. It instantly just draws away the heat from the body.
Klein placed his napkin on the plate as he recounted the feelings he just had. At this moment, Mock returned from the washroom. He smiled as he bent down and whispered into Dwayne Dantes' ear.
Same room as before.
All right.
Klein got up, went to the room with the safe deposit box, and took out the small leather briefcase with 10,000 pounds before heading over to the activity room where he had previously met Colonel Calvin twice. Calvin, with his long face, was already waiting inside. When he caught sight of the briefcase in Dwayne Dantes' hand, he got up with a smile.
You really are a gentleman of action. I like such attitudes when handling matters.
As he spoke, he extended his right hand and shook Dwayne Dantes' hand. Klein then handed the briefcase to him and said with a humble smile,
As a merchant, if one isn't decisive and fast when facing an opportunity to make money, that means that they aren't suitable for this occupation.
Calvin sat back down and opened the briefcase in front of Dwayne Dantes and mocked. He roughly counted the neat stacks of cash. He quickly completed the confirmation check, closed the briefcase, and looked up at Dwayne Dantes.
What other thoughts do you have towards the exact details of the transaction?
Klein deliberately wore a look as though he was organizing his words. After a few seconds, he said,
I'm planning on heading to the Southern Continent soon, to West Balaam.
Seeing Calvin and Mock show signs of surprise, he added,
I have some matters that aren't convenient to do while bringing plenty of firearms. And to make the transaction go smoothly, some advanced preparations are required. Haha, I have to put enough importance on this matter. It's a business worth tens of thousands of pounds. I'm thinking of first heading to West Balaam to contact clients who have such needs and to clear out any obvious obstacles. At an agreed-upon time, I'll contact you via telegraph and head to East Balem's border to retrieve the goods.
Calvin pondered for a moment and said,
You can send me a telegram after 20th June. I'll give you the details later. In short, after I receive the telegram, I'll inform the officer there and get them to pass the countersign and password to the designated personnel for them to head to the warehouse. Will you need any auxiliary personnel for protection during this time? When do you plan on leaving?
I only wish to find a place to hide in West Balem where there's no Rose school of thought. The rest can be left to Danitz. When do I leave? I obviously wish to leave today and arrive there today, but that will incur suspicion.
Klein considered for 2 seconds and said,
There's no need for any security for the time being. In certain places in the southern continent, having such auxiliary personnel is the main cause for causing conflict. Don't worry, I have plenty of friends in West Balem. Without bringing anything of value, my safety can be guaranteed. As for when I'm leaving, my answer is as soon as possible.
Calvin thought for nearly a minute before slowly nodding.
I'll send someone to receive you after dinner tomorrow. The military will have an airship that needs to send goods and personnel to Desi Bay, and it's just a short distance to the southern continent via ship from there. If everything goes smoothly, it will just take 2 to 3 days. Even if there's a storm on the way, requiring a detour of the sea route, it will still take a maximum of a week.
Thank you.
Klein sincerely stood up and bowed. From his point of view, leaving Backlund with the military was safe enough. He wouldn't be made a target of suspicion. After discussing some details, Klein got up and bade farewell and returned to the foyer in preparation to leave. In the foyer, beside the dining table, there were nearly 10 military-clad or casually dressed men holding a cup of wine gathered. They were chatting and laughing about the recent rumors. When Klein swept his gaze over, he suddenly found a figure somewhat familiar. The man was more than 1.85 meters tall, but less than 1.9 meters. He had rather long arms, and his feet were faced outwards to a certain degree. His shoulders were abnormally broad, causing his black suit to appear rather tight. Klein's mind raced as his nerves tensed up. He had already recalled the source of the familiarity. It was the demigod that met crazy Captain Connors that night. He was the demigod suspected to be working for a particular faction of the royal family, one who was supervising the human trafficking. Although this high-sequence beyonder was previously wearing a black hood that interfered with divination, preventing his appearance from being exposed, Klein remembered the traits of his body. That was what a faceless was good at. Chapter 888, A Shocking Glance. For a second, Klein's act of casually sweeping his gaze paused on that familiar person's figure. He immediately sensed the abnormality in his reaction, since a demigod's spiritual perception would not fail to notice it. His back muscles tensed up as his mind raced, producing figurative sparks. He did not immediately move his gaze away, as he continued looking at the demigod suspected to be from the Black Emperor pathway. He smiled at Macht and said,
This place really is not just for veteran officers.
This sounded like a result of careful observation, but it was nothing but meaningless chatter. Macht chuckled.
Any club will exceed its original restrictions when it further develops itself.
His answer did not seem to offer anything, but on careful consideration it did seem to imply something, or perhaps something, that was the complete opposite. At this moment, the broad-shouldered and long-armed gentleman in a black suit had also naturally turned his head. He looked at the two men, and he noticed that the tycoon who had donated £15,000 was looking at him and his companions while engaging Member of Parliament Macht with a whisper. This made him feel that his look of surprise was more of a natural reaction towards learning of his occupation. Then he retracted his gaze and continued his topic of conversation. And at this moment, Klein's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat, and his legs were going limp. Although he had, in a way, faced the demigod before and had even fought with him, to have such a close encounter in such a small place, with danger happening in a split second, this was a first. And more importantly, he was far from prepared to face a demigod. Not only did he lack a marionette, all he had on him was Death Knell, Azek's copper whistle, and the adventurer's harmonica. The sea god's scepter was impossible to bring on his person. Furthermore, the usage of it had strict environmental limitations, otherwise it would result in massive damage. If he kept Grozel's travels on him for too long, he might be pulled into the book world. When that happens, it would become troublesome trying to exit it. Creeping hunger was still lacking a seal, so it needed to feed every day. Unless necessary, it was impossible to take it out ahead of time. The Fate Siphon charm was made from a worm of time, so it was an unknown if it would attract Amon. Unless he could use it very quickly, Klein obviously lacked the courage to bring it on him. If the demigod, who was suspected to be from the Black Emperor pathway, had discovered something wrong with him, there was only one optimal solution he could think of. It was to blow the harmonica and summon Miss Messenger to get her to help him escape Backland via the spirit world. He had never thought of letting Renette Tyneker engage in a direct battle while he held Death Knell from the side to find an opportunity to fire. This was Backland, the home ground of the official Beyonders. With Miss Messenger's unique appearance, that man could easily pin a crime on her, and what awaited Klein would be a joint attack on him. There was bound to be increasing numbers of demigods and powerful sealed artifacts. How harrowing! Klein moved his gaze away in a manner that adhered to logic. Using the clown's ability to control his legs, he walked to the door in a completely normal manner. He did not ask mocked who those people were, to appear uninterested as a way to prove that it was all just a casual glance. However, that person, turning to look at him, had exposed his appearance to Klein. He had thick but unmessy black brows, with a short and hard crew cut of the same color. He had dark blue eyes and a high nose bridge with a bushy mustache spreading out from his mouth. He had a long face with accentuated outlines as well as callous curves. He had strong masculine vibes and was probably in his 30s or 40s. It was difficult to determine. Just on his appearance alone, Klein felt that he looked more like an Arbiter Pathway's demigod rather than one of the Black Emperor Pathway. Of course, this demigod's bearing was closer to that of a warrior's, but he was too short. Having had a clear look at him, Klein did not need to inquire further. He could directly get Rhodes to answer him. Even if he was still wary of the magic mirror, he could always commission Miss Shio, Miss Sharon, and company to do a simple background check. He believed that no matter how well hidden this demigod was, it was unlikely for him to have a low-ranking position. It would be easy to figure out who he was. Quapple, 1 step. 2 steps. 3 steps. Klein left the East Balaam Military Veterans Mess in a normal manner. When he boarded the carriage, he leaned on the wall, closed his eyes, and kept silent for a few seconds. Inwardly, he let out a long sigh.
The disconnected trail of clues leading to the truth of the Great Smog of Backland has finally been connected again.
He did not open his eyes or say a word, as though he was recounting the business problems he had previously discussed. But in fact, it was to quell his emotions that had been left in an upheaval. During this process, Klein realized that Richardson had tried to speak a few times, only to shut his mouth again, doing so as though he was stumped. Ultimately, he did not say a word, focused on preparing Marquis black tea for his employer. Due to his previous encounter, Klein momentarily did not have the capacity to be bothered about him and had pretended to not notice it. Amidst the silent atmosphere and grinding wheels, they returned to 160 Bauckland Street. When he reached the 3rd floor, Klein was just about to head for the bathtub that had been prepared by the lady's maid, when Richardson, who was holding his hat and cane, took 2 steps forward and respectfully said,
"Sir, are you heading to the southern continent soon?"
Yes.
Klein replied frankly. He had even prepared £500 in cash to hand to housekeeper Tanea for daily expenses needed for the Dwayne Dante's residence during his time in the southern continent. Meanwhile, he had a deeper understanding of the importance of having a butler and valet in high society. There were many things that a master could not keep from them. Therefore, any conflict in faith and political inclinations necessitated a change. Richardson hesitated and said,
"Sir, I was born in the southern continent and am fluent in Deutonese. I am also very familiar with the various local traditions. I should be of help to you."
Deutonese was a common language of the ancient Balaam Empire. In present-day East and West Balaam, the citizens still use this language. Only people of the middle and upper class knew foreign languages, like ancient Phasac, Loanese, and Intis. Klein felt lucky with regards to this, because ancient Balaam was once a unified empire with a true god existing in it. Therefore, although the different states had different accents, they all used Deutonese. The written language was likewise the same. This saved him plenty of trouble. Klein finished listening to Richardson when he suddenly realized what was stumping him.
If I were to encounter dozens or more than 100 dialects and languages, that would be a headache. However, Deutonese and ancient Phasac does not belong to the same system. I am unable to easily grasp the various branches by learning the latter. Finding an interpreter is necessary. Oh, Anderson seems to be fluent in Deutonese. He never seemed to mention having any problems with communication in West Balaam.
As a valet, he needed to follow whenever his employer headed out. There was no need for a butler to do so. This also meant that a valet was like a secretary for the master's daily life. In certain cases, they would also play a role as a business secretary. Clearly, Richardson enjoyed his life in Backland and everything it had to offer. He did not wish to return to the southern continent to see scenery or matters that would make him recall his past. Therefore, when he got into the carriage, he had tried to mention his traits, but was unable to voice it out. He wished that Duane Dantes could find a better candidate. Klein thought for a moment before saying,
I can tell that you do not like the southern continent. Why are you telling me this?
Richardson slowly bowed his head and looked at his toes.
You gave me a chance to gain experience to mature. I believe I can help you.
Very simple feelings of gratitude. If you had not said so, no one would know that you knew Deutonese. After all, you were born and raised in an East Balaam colony manor.
Klein carefully sized up Richardson, chuckled inwardly, and made some silent, poignant comments. However, he did not plan on letting this valet of his follow him to the southern continent. Firstly, it would make it inconvenient for him to carry out certain operations. Secondly, if he was recognized by some Nation Reestablishment Society member of the numinous episcopate, it might end up affecting the rest of his life. Klein laughed and replied,
I have plenty of friends there. They are all fluent in Deutonese and are aware of the traditions there. You have more important things to do. Stay in Backland. Help me deliver some gifts to my friends at fixed periods of time. I will be giving you a name list when the time comes. Also read more papers and take note of investment opportunities and also perform on-the-ground checks. Finally, give me a corresponding report. I will get Madame Tenacia to specially prepare some funds for this.
Richardson was somewhat surprised before saying in pleasant surprise,
Yes, sir. I will work hard.
At that instant, he felt that he was being put in an important position as his eyes blurred up. From the moment he was born, this was the first time he felt hope for his future. It was something to look forward to. After dismissing Richardson, Klein took a comfortable bath to soothe his tense nerves. Then, he wore his pajamas and returned to the bedroom. Taking a pen and paper, he drew a symbol that was a mixture of concealment and mystery prying. The full-body mirror's surface ripples with aqueous light as silver light formed Loanese text.
Exalted Great Master, your puny, loyal, and humble servant Aretes is here to answer your summoning. Are you about to leave Backland again?
Klein nodded and said,
Yes.
Without waiting for Arodos to mention that he could question it, he asked,
Can I still contact you in the southern continent?
Of course, as long as you take out that magical radio transceiver.
On the surface of the mirror, silver words quickly formed.
However, you cannot leave it out in the real world for too long or use it too frequently. There are plenty of beneficiaries of the Mother Tree of Desire. She can use it to detect you.
Klein nodded gently and asked,
What do you know about the Mother Tree of Desire?
A road suddenly fell into silence. It was only after a very long time that its silver luster formed a complete sentence.
I do not dare to mention it, nor do I dare to show it.
Chapter 889, Warning to Everyone.
Don't dare to mention it or show it. At least for Erodes, the Mother Tree of Desire is definitely stronger than Sequence 1's Zaratul. No, it's even stronger than the Monster Pathway's uniqueness, Die of Probability. There should be a way to circumvent the restriction to get Uroros to display the corresponding information, such as bringing it above the gray fog. Heh, how is that possible? That won't happen unless I'm already an angel, and in complete control of that mysterious space.
Klein's eyes moved slightly without pressing the question. He asked,
It's your turn to ask.
The full-body mirror's silver light turned brisk, forming a new sentence.
Great Master, what other instructions do you have for me?
Nice question.
Klein thought for a moment and said,
After I leave Backland, take note of Dr. Aaron Sears' family. Once his wife gives birth, remember to mention it to me when I summon you.
After careful consideration, Klein believed that leaving this matter to Aerodes was for the best. After all, no one could monitor Dr. Aaron's residence 24 hours a day. And what Klein needed to do was to switch residences at the end of the month to turn on the radio transceiver once.
All right, Master.
The words on the mirror reflected Aerodes's mood.
I have a question.
Speak.
Klein nodded, giving permission. This time, the sentences Aerodes presented were filled with pauses as though it was very hesitant.
Great Master, what relationship does that child have with you?
It seemed to be puzzled why a supreme ruler above the spirit world would pay so much attention to a yet-to-be-born infant.
I've already said that it's the yet-to-be-born child of Dr. Aaron Sirius. Yet Aerodes fails to notice anything special about Will Septon. When it comes to hiding his fate and special traits, a snake of fate is far better than the angels of the other sequences. However, the magic mirror is able to accurately give me the time when Tail Devourer Ouroboros would leave Backland. It's likely that Will Septon's reboot makes it difficult for high-leveled existences to notice anything. This might also be why he can avoid the Angel of Fate.
Klein answered in enlightenment.
Friends.
About being Will Septon's godfather, it was just a casual thought. He didn't have much confidence about that or dare to force it, afraid that he would annoy the Snake of Fate.
Only friends.
Aerodes revealed an inexplicable sense of disappointment in its words.
Great Master, you can ask a question.
Klein thought for a moment before saying,
Do you know who the person I met at the East Balaam Military Veterans Mess is? If you aren't sure who I'm referring to, I can draw him for you.
In the dark and deep mirror, aqueous light surfaced, producing a cold and bearded man with dark blue eyes. It was none other than the demigod Klein suspected to be of the Black Emperor pathway. Meanwhile, the corresponding text appeared beneath the picture.
He's Brigadier General Conus Kilgore. He's from MI9 and is a deputy director. He's known to be a Sequence 5 from the Lawyer Pathway, but he wields a powerful sealed artifact.
MI9, Brigadier General, Deputy Director. From the looks of it, he's the representative of the spy network for the faction of the royal family.
Klein memorized the information given to him by the magic mirror, but for a moment he was at a loss as to the direction for the investigation. After all, Cronus was a demigod, and be it spying or sounding him out, it would easily put him in an alert state regardless of whether he did it himself or commissioned someone else. It was bound to provoke revenge. The only reliable idea he had was to rely on Miss Justice to do some gathering of information. Not only was her standing high, she also had the social connections to obtain the relevant information. Furthermore, she was a Sequence 6 of the Spectator pathway. She could steer topics of conversation without garnering any suspicion, allowing her to complete her observations stealthily.
I have to say that, although spectators have lacking combat abilities, they are a force to be reckoned with in other aspects. Besides, with the powers of psychiatrist and hypnotist, spectators can control and guide the direction of a battle to a certain extent.
Klein reflected over it as he wondered what else he could ask Aerodes about. At this moment, the light from the mirror's surface faded and formed a new sentence.
Great Master, do you wish to know the mastermind behind Quaran's suicide?
You are even providing me intelligence on your own accord? Although I've already extricated myself from this matter, I haven't been too actively involved in it and am just awaiting the Nighthawks. investigations. I didn't even find it necessary to ask about it.
Klein chuckled inwardly and nodded.
Yes.
The full-body mirror produced a silver line of text.
Royal Family's consultant, Kevin Rambis, one of the counselors of the psychology alchemists.
Psychology alchemists? Royal Family's consultant?
Klein immediately frowned. He found it difficult to determine what the psychology alchemists were plotting, or if a particular faction of the royal family was dissatisfied with the current political climate and was attempting to nudge it.
The psychology alchemists isn't like I imagined, being focused on academics and the exploration of ancient ruins. Do all secret organizations attempt to grasp power at a certain point to influence the world? An anchor's requirement? I wonder if Kevin Rambis's ploy is a personal act or decided by the organization. If it's the former, that's still all right, but if it's the latter, it will be easier for Miss Justice to encounter difficult choices as her standing in the psychology alchemist rises.
Klein's thoughts whirred as he returned to the question-and-answer game. He deliberated and asked,
"What else do you wish to say?"
If anyone else had asked such a question, Klein believed that Erodes would smite them with lightning or use another malicious method to tease them. However, he believed that, as a supreme ruler above the spirit world, he had the right to ask such a question. It was also an opportunity to test Erodes' bottom line. The silver light on the full-body mirror surface transformed into another new line without any hesitation.
Great Master Aemon is already in Backland, as you expected, as it's his avatar that came. I can see it.
What do you mean, as I expected? When did I expect it?
Klein pricked up his brows and said,
I'm aware. All right. That's it for today. I'll summon you again using the radio transceiver if I come across any more questions.
Yes, Master. Your loyal and humble servant, Erodes, is constantly awaiting your orders. Goodbye.
The mirror's surface depicted an emoticon of waving a handkerchief. Klein watched in silence until everything was restored to normal. On the second day, which was a Monday, he had already made preparations to head to the southern continent. Apart from the luggage that contained 2 sets of clothes, 500 pounds, and some miscellaneous clothing that was meant for show, he threw the remaining 12,125 pounds and 87 gold coins above the gray fog. The reason why he was so careful was because Klein had a deep impression on his last death and resurrection. If he hadn't had an anonymous account with a few £100 from Miss Justice, he had no idea how long he had to wander the streets. Perhaps he had to really get a job at the circus to be a clown, or he'd have to head to a certain gangster leader's place to borrow some money. Seeing that it was almost 3, Klein headed up above the gray fog, prepared to have this week's tarot gathering. He had previously done a divination here, and he received the conclusion that, unless they were in the same building, Blasphemer Aemon was unable to detect a tarot club member being pulled up into the mysterious space above the gray fog. Before long, dark red beams shot up in the Grand Palace, materializing into blurry figures. Having confirmed that she was restarting her psychology lessons this week and having re-established contact with the psychology alchemists, Audrey looked towards the end of the long bronze table in a relatively good mood. She stood up, raised the corners of her skirt, and bowed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fool.
Opposite her, the hanged man also got up and bowed, but he had another question on his mind. He had originally promised the world Gehrman Sparrow that he would give him the mystical item made from the ocean songster Beyonder characteristic last week. But to his dismay, something happened to the artisan, preventing him from handing it over in time. With regards to this, Alger planned on explaining the reason to the world at the tarot gathering before personally taking action to resolve the problems of the artisan. After the bow and exchanging greetings, Catalea was just about to say something when she saw Mr. Fool rap the edges of the modeled table. This dull knock made all the Tarot Club members tense up. They had no idea what Mr. Fool was about to say.
It must be something serious. Something that's emphasized by Mr. Fool at the beginning must be something serious.
Audrey determined inwardly. The Fool Klein surveyed the area and said with a smile,
Aemon recently came to Backland. An avatar.
Aemon? Blasphemer Aemon?
Derek instantly felt his unpleasant memories become invoked. be it parasitizing the former team captain, asking, "Are you looking for me?" Or coiling around his spirit body like a snake, Eamon with his pointed hat was a nightmare he couldn't shirk away from. One had to know that, as a resident of the City of Silver, Derek had seen plenty of terrifying monsters. Only a few could make him feel uneasy and fearful just from a mere recollection.
Eamon has headed to Backland, where Miss Justice and Miss Magician are living? What does he want? What should they do?
Derek suddenly felt nervous for his companions.
Ammon. This ancient king of angels has returned to the real world? Indeed, when a revolution is about to happen or is descending, the waves of the times will come flooding in.
Algiers' eyes narrowed as he recalled what Vice Admiral Hurricane Quilangos had once said to him. Catalia's thoughts were similar to his. As the King of Angels had reappeared in the northern continent, she could catch a whiff of the unease. A phrase surfaced in her mind, the changing of an epoch.
Amon, Angel of Time, Amon, an ancient king of angels.
Audrey trembled in concern. She glanced at the Magician Fours and Mr. Moon, who wore blank and horrified looks, and couldn't help but look towards the end of the long bronze table.
Honorable Mr. Fool, can I think of a way to inform the Church of this matter?
Chapter 890. Ignore him. Regarding Miss Justice's question, Klein had already considered it some time ago. After all, leaving troublesome problems to the official organizations who could resolve them was his modus operandi. However, Leonard's and Pallas Zoroast's reaction made him realize something different. Leonard was a red glove of the Nighthawks. He could easily create an informant to pass the news of Eamon being in Backland to the Church of Evernight, and then let the Archbishop and high-ranking deacons decide on a strategy before carrying out an operation. It wouldn't expose his problem, and it could also quash any latent troubles. Yet he had chosen to leave using the excuse of a mission. It was obvious to Klein that Eamon's appearance was tied to the reason for Leonard's choice of action. He had the suspicion that informing the Church of Evernight might result in unpredictable, negative outcomes. Therefore, the angel of the Marauder pathway in Leonard's body had denied this choice of action. And he was one of the existences who knew the various Beyonder powers that Amon possessed.
When I have no idea what to do, the choice is undoubtedly to emulate those with experience. Although there's the gray fog separating us, and any problem will cease at Miss Justice's side, there's no need to take such risks. There aren't many members of the Tarot Club to begin with. Every one of them needs to be cherished.
Thoughts flashed through the fool Klein's mind as he shook his head and said with a calm, humored tone,
Ignore him.
Ignore him. Mr. Fool's attitude is as if Ammon is a stray dog. In his eyes, only Sequence 0 true deities are worthy of attention. That's right. The last time the sun was possessed by Eamon's avatar, Mr. Fool had easily cleansed it away. As long as Eamon doesn't appear in person, it's not too big a problem for him. The reason Mr. Fool emphasized this matter at the beginning is to warn us to be careful.
Algier thought in fearful respect and enlightenment. Audrey similarly interpreted the meaning that it was a trivial matter. She suddenly made the connection.
Is Mr. World Gehrman Sparrow's temporary departure of Backland to avoid Angel of Time Amon? To Mr. Fool, although he is still slowly recovering his standing, level, and powers, it's not difficult for him to deal with Amon's avatar. The sun's encounter is evidence. He got his blessed to avoid Amon to not attract the Angel of Time's real body, as this can spoil his plans of awakening? Yes, he emphasized it to us as a warning, worried that we wouldn't react properly when chancing upon Amon. Mr. Fool really shows his concern for us.
At this moment, Emlyn had just digested the matter of King of Angels blasphemer Amon's appearance in Backland. Although he was arrogant, repeated tarot gatherings had allowed him to understand what a King of Angels was. It was an existence second to sanguine ancestor Lilith, second to the true deities that sat at the pinnacle sequence. They were the strongest ones who walked the real world.
What's going to happen this time in Backland? When the time comes, there will be dead people, the wounded or the sick, everywhere outside. I'll become busy again because of Father.
Emlyn recalled his life after the Great Smog of Backland, as he showed signs of fear that such matters would happen again. Fors also felt that the problem was significant. This was because if Angel of Time Aemon really wanted to do something, it was very likely that he would inflict damage on a large scale. It was something that she could avoid by hiding at home and not heading out. She silently drew a breath and looked to the end of the long bronze table, worriedly asking,
Honorable Mr. Fool, why is Aemon sending his avatar to Backland?
Klein deliberated over his choice of words and looked around the table with a smile.
To look for all of you.
To look for us? The sentence seemed to be like bolts of lightning that struck Fors and company awake. It left their spines numb. Right on the heels of that, Audrey made the connection of the reply to ignore him from before. She found Mr. Fool like the boundless ocean, and a mere avatar of blasphemer Aemon was just a rock. It could only cause a tiny stir, and nothing more.
Although Aemon's avatar came to find us Tarot Club members, Mr. Fool has said to ignore him, so there's no need to bother about him. Praise Mr. Fool.
Audrey's nerves that had just tensed up instantly relaxed. Emlyn, Fors, and Derek also figured out something similar. They either leaned back into their seats, exhaled openly, or praised Mr. Fool from the bottom of their hearts. Catalia hadn't joined when Aemon possessed the son Derek, and she had only learned of it during a few of the subsequent discussions. Therefore, she knew little and didn't have deep thoughts about it. She just felt worried over the situation where Aemon, a king of angels, was seeking out the Tarot Club members.
Why would a king of angels like Aemon target the Tarot Club? He likely discovered our organization from the sun. What goal does he have? And why is he so confident? He is targeting Mr. Fool? He can sense the abnormalities of the gray fog? But Mr. Fool said to ignore him. This means that, under normal circumstances, Aemon is unable to tell who is a Tarot Club member. With Kings of Angels appearing, is the fifth epoch coming to an end?
After Alger relaxed from his tensed state, he began thinking about something else. Back when he informed the Church of Storms about Banshee Harbor's problem, his excuse was that he had heard someone at a bar mentioning it. And he had described this person using blasphemer Aemon's image. Thankfully, even if the church were to encounter Aemon, with the way they handle things, they wouldn't verify and question this matter. And regardless of Aemon's performance or because of his identity, they will definitely find him extremely suspicious and place weight on this suspicion. Alger wasn't worried that he would expose himself for this trivial problem. He only believed that it was best that he should be careful and not randomly use high-ranking Beyonders, especially angels and above, as scapegoats. Hence, he warned himself.
Although not every high-ranking Beyonder is at the level of any mention of it will be known, or have similar powers. Mentioning it excessively might result in me encountering that existence due to the machinations of fate. After all, the higher one goes, the deeper the connections of fate will be.
Seeing that the Tarot Club members, especially the three who were in Backland, had already shown signs of wariness about Aemon's avatar and had written off the thoughts of being rash and not plan on targeting the blasphemer, he calmed down and leaned back, leisurely looking at everyone as an indication that the floor was theirs. Catalia reined in her worries over the northern and southern continent and the 5 seas before looking to the seat of honor at the long bronze table.
Honorable Mr. Fool, I have 3 new diary pages again this time.
She remembered vividly that, at the end of last Monday's tarot gathering, she had informed the meaning of the 2 Rosalian characters to Queen Mystic. However, she only received a reply on Sunday. In it were 3 new diary pages and a question of medium length. The place his mind and spirit calls home, is it on that island or the depths of the cosmos? When Catalia ruminated over this question, she seemed to sense the emotional upheavals that were happening when Queen Mystic wrote it, unlike her usual calm self. With regards to this, she sighed silently based on her understanding of Queen Mystic Bernadette.
In Her Majesty's heart, Emperor Roselle is an unresolved knot. This is the reason why she ultimately doesn't dare to advance to Sequence 2?
Klein had no idea what Mam Hermit was thinking. All he did was nod and indicated that she could conjure the new Roselle diary pages. Soon, the 3 yellowish-brown goatskin pages appeared in his palm.
10th March. I participated in that ancient and most secret organization's gathering. After many observations, I'm increasingly puzzled over a problem. What does it mean to be the trend of the times? Who defines the trend of the times? If it's really as they claim, when everything ends, and the original creator is resurrected from the dead, awakening from his slumber, he would gather everything back into his body to create a new world and new history. Then, there's no need for them to let the times develop according to what they expect of the times. They can quickly come up with all kinds of schemes, such as triggering a world war, a war between angels, or even a war between deities. Wouldn't that accelerate their goals? Or could it be the case that the times is part of the original creator? Only when the times develop according to a certain expectation can he draw energy from it and revive. This isn't scientific. Of course, whatever I see and participate in now isn't scientific at all. Actually, if I had any say, why revive the creator who rides above all? Everyone can just go through the motions and enjoy themselves without any restrictions. Isn't that better? Based on my observations, there are many members who share similar viewpoints as mine. However, there are a number of members who are stubborn and inflexible, strictly abiding to their beliefs. I wonder if they should be called idealists or crazy cultists. What I can't see through the most is that mysterious leader. Old Mr. Hermes told me that this organization began with him. No, him. It was organized with people who shared his beliefs and goals. However, he seldom expresses his thoughts, never stopping many of the members who use the organization for their own purposes. At times, I will even forget his existence. He seems to enjoy sitting there, silently watching everyone converse. But on one matter, I witnessed his might. A high-sequence beyonder, who had gone against their so-called trend of the times, was put forth by him. In 30 seconds, the person became a target of elimination. And I believe that the poor fellow wouldn't survive past summer. Who is he? Some ancient god that survived the second epoch?
Roselle had used 2 question marks at the end of the sentence to express his strong doubts. This was something he seldom did, hence Klein suspected that this was the reason why Bernadette had chosen this diary entry.